Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Lakers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. The Los Angeles Lakers are entering the 2025 NBA offseason with a clear mandate: retool the roster around LeBron James and Luka Doncic to return to championship contention. Following a second consecutive first-round playoff exit that exposed specific roster needs, General Manager Rob Pelinka has signaled changes ahead, fueling speculation about potential trades and free agency moves. Among the players whose futures are uncertain is forward Rui Hachimura. Despite a solid season, Hachimura's name has surfaced in trade rumors as the Lakers explore options to strengthen their lineup. This is primarily due to Hachimura's expiring $18.3 million salary that can be used to facilitate a deal. Last week, it was reported by ESPN's Shams Charania on the Pat McAfee show that James is expected to opt into the final year of his contract. This would leave the Lakers paying him $52.6 million next season, further limiting their avenues for roster building. Amid this news, ESPN's Bobby Marks gave an update on what the Lakers can do this offseason. During Tuesday's segment of Get Up, Marks said the Lakers are expected to be aggressive, especially given James's contract situation. "I expect them to be extremely aggressive this offseason," Mark said of the Lakers, especially with LeBron likely going into, he's got 1 year left on his contract. The Lakers have got to take advantage of the $60 million expiring contracts when you're certainly looking at players like Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura. While there had been some buzz that James may opt out and take a pay cut next season to help the Lakers gain more financial flexibility, that does not appear to be the case. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
Out in the first round. So, Bobby, what do we expect their offseason to look like?
I expect them to be extremely aggressive this offseason, especially with LeBron likely going into, he's got 1 year left on his contract. I think there's three things here. You've got to take advantage of the $60 million in expiring contracts when you're looking at certainly players like Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura. The second thing is they showed their hand at the trade deadline when they made that Mark Williams trade that wound up failing him on his physical. They are going to go out and get a center this offseason. We'll see how that goes. You've got one first-round pick to do that. And then the third thing is keep an eye on August 2nd. That is when Luka is eligible to sign that extension. So you're trying to build for the now, but I think you also have to have an eye for the future when eventually LeBron does retire here.
That's an interesting piece of this to me, Alan, is that you've got Tatum is what he is, right? He's a young player. He had a catastrophic injury, but he'll be back and, knock on wood, he'll be great. With the Lakers, you have to both have a plan to try and win the title next year, which feels within grasp, and also have something put together for what will then become Luka's Lakers into the future.
I'm not even worried about that. I'm not.
You're just winning next year.
This is your window right now. You still have LeBron James. With those two guys, you have a chance to win a championship because of their greatness together. You're hoping that the impact on Luka and how he shows up for training camp, that's something you can't control. What you can control is the most important need on this roster is a center. So they tried Mark Williams. He would have been a great fit. For whatever reason, that didn't happen. But I expect that they're going to be calling every single team that has a big man. And here in New York, they should be calling the Knicks about Mitchell Robinson. If the Knicks are trying to get assets, if they're trying to figure out what they want to do with their roster going forward, maybe even need to save money, perhaps that's a team that that's a guy the Lakers should be targeting. He would be a perfect fit on that team.
It's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of it, but it's a good one. Jay Will, how about the Lakers?
Yeah, Granny, I don't think they need another star. I think they need dogs, right? I think I look at a guy who's going to be in the NBA Finals in Isaiah Hartenstein. I'm like, okay, that's a great fit for the Lakers. Clint Capella, that's a great fit. 3-and-D type players. You look at Nicole Alexander-Walker, like another great fit. People that can space the floor but also can defend. I think you need the right pieces and depth to help out LeBron James and Luka with the style in which they play. They're both such prolific passers and masters of manipulating different offenses. You need defensive pieces, and that's what Luka thrives at when he was in Dallas, right? Lob guys at the rim, but also guys who can space the floor, shooting from the perimeter, but also can D up.
Bobby, do the Lakers have the wherewithal? People to have it sitting in their homes, if not memorized what every team has at their disposal right now, cap-wise and roster-wise. Do the Lakers have the wherewithal to make the moves we're talking about?
They're challenged because of the lack of draft picks they have. Remember, they sent a pick to Dallas in 2029. They owe Utah a pick in 27. They've got one first to trade, and that's in 2031 or 32. They got a couple pick swaps. So from a draft standpoint, basically that 31 pick is really your lone big asset that you have left.
All right, give me one more as we're looking at the blueprints for the Blue Bloods. How about Golden State's offseason around Steph Curry? What do we expect?
I think Golden State is interesting here. Certainly there's a 2-year window with Curry, Butler, and Draymond on their contract for the next 2 years.
First and foremost, this is from Mark Stein, talking a little bit about the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think are a really interesting team to watch this summer, specifically for the Lakers, because I think a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker could be a great fit for them. The Lakers need perimeter defense. He can help provide that. A little bit of outside shooting could be a nice fit next to Luka, potentially next to Austin Reeves in the backcourt as well. The Lakers, they need more athleticism. They need more defense. He could help you out doing that. And this is talking a bit about Naz Reid here. And the trouble that the Wolves have right now is that they only have so much money to really spend, and they are up against it when we look at their cap sheet. So that could mean that some of their free agents become available. So when we look at their cap sheet right now, they're just $925,000 below that first apron, $12.8 million below that second apron. But they've got a number of free agents that they've got to deal with. Naz Reid has that $15 million player option that he's probably not going to pick up. He's probably going to get a new deal somewhere else. Now, Stein is mentioning the Detroit Pistons as a potential landing spot for him. Detroit has their own guys that they need to figure some things out with. But if the Wolves end up paying Naz Reid, plus Julius Randle has that almost $31 million player option, they could wind up out of money or in a situation where they are right up against that second tier apron, which most teams are going to treat as a de facto hard cap. That's going to make it really, really difficult for the Wolves to hang on to guys like that. And they may wind up having to lose one or more of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is a full unrestricted free agent, Naz Reid, who can hit free agency if he doesn't pick up that player option, and Julius Randle, who also has that player option. Now, Randle, I would assume they probably hang on to. I don't know if he gets $31 million out there on the market, though we did have a really good playoff run. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker could be a target for the Lakers in free agency. But one of the things that you don't want to see happen for the Lakers is this. And this mentions Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Yes, the Wolves say they want to keep all their guys. Of course, they're going to say they want to keep all their guys right now. But already talking about the full mid-level exception, $14.1 million, with rumors in circulation that Orlando is the team to watch as a potential suitor. So the reason why you don't want to see this if you're the Lakers is right now, assuming that LeBron James does just pick up his player option, which is the rumor that we talked about a few days ago, that came from Shams Charania. If LeBron picks up that $52-ish million player option, that's not going to leave much for the Lakers out there in free agency. In fact, the biggest weapon they'll have if LeBron picks up that player option is their $5.6 million mid-level exception to go spend. And so if somebody's willing to do a full mid-level like the Orlando Magic, that's going to make it really difficult to compete for a player like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, that said, I look at the teams that do have the mid-level available, and it's not as daunting as it used to be for the Lakers, a team that most likely is only going to have that taxpayer mid-level at $5.6 million. It's not necessarily the detriment to LA that it would have been in previous seasons, because so many teams are now seeing the full mid-level exception as a weapon to use as a trade exception rather than actually spend it in free agency. Now, all it takes is one. If it's the Orlando Magic or anybody else that says, hey, we really want to give Nickeil Alexander-Walker $14.1 million, then that's it. I mean, that's more than double, almost triple what the Lakers could potentially pay. And that would almost certainly mean they'd be out on his services. But most of these teams with the mid-level exceptions are actually not going to spend them. They're going to wind up keeping them into the season to potentially use them as a trade exception on the trade market. So even if we look and we see that there's a bunch of teams that have that mid-level exception, that doesn't necessarily mean they're in front of the Lakers in terms of spending power, because there are a lot of teams that will choose to not use that money or at least save some of it for the mid-season trade market. So that's something to keep an eye on. Nickeil Alexander-Walker would be a phenomenal target for the Lakers, that $5.6 million. But if any team comes along and offers that full mid-level exception of $14.1 million, even if the Wolves are priced out because they've spent money on Naz Reid to keep him, because they've spent on a guy like Julius Randle to keep him, and they decide Alexander Walker is the guy they're going to let go of, all it's going to take is one of those teams to come in with a full mid-level offer, and that will probably put the Lakers out of the running for him. However, that doesn't mean the Lakers are totally out of the picture when we're looking at free agency, when we're looking at trades. In fact, there was a rumor just the other day from Chris Fedora coming out of Cleveland that the Cavs are no longer as sold on keeping Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland. Now, the Lakers are not a natural fit for Darius Garland for obvious reasons. They were, back in the day, they were rumored to be the team that was going to select Darius Garland, but that pick wound up actually going to New Orleans in the Anthony Davis trade, and they flipped it to ironically get Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the draft that year, as well as Jackson Hayes they picked up. But the pick wound up being used on DeAndre Hunter. But the Lakers were rumored to, had they kept that 4th overall pick in the 2019 draft, that they would have actually used it on Darius Garland. But he no longer makes a lot of sense for the Lakers. Jarrett Allen, on the other hand, now that is interesting. We know the Lakers need a big. I say the Lakers need 2 bigs, not just one. They need 2. They need multiple players with size that they can convincingly play at the 5. And ideally, as we've talked about with a number of our guests on here before, I've talked about on other shows as well, the Lakers would ideally like to take those bigs that they get and have them have contrasting skill sets. So if your starting quality big is going to be the bruising type, you want your backup to be more of the rim running, a lighter, a Jackson Hayes, a Nick Claxton type, a lob threat type of big, or perhaps a 3-point shooting big that you can get. So that's what the Lakers want to do. Add a couple of bigs and have them with contrasting skill sets to allow JJ Redick to mix and match as much as possible. Well, if Jarrett Allen is available, there you go. There is a starting level big right there. And I'll tell you what, I love his contract. I know it's a long-term contract, but he's only 26 years old. So when we're talking about guys that you can get and align with the salary of Luka Doncic, align with his timeline, perfect, right? Doesn't get any better. Luka's 26, Jarrett Allen is 26, boom, off we go, right? But $20 million under contract next season, that's great. That's phenomenal. You're paying him 13%, just under that, of the salary cap. Fantastic fit, traditional big, rim running big, can set screens, roll hard to the basket, catch, finish, protect the paint, do all those things. Is he a little bit undersized? Yeah, maybe. But I mean, he's got more size to him, certainly, than Nick Claxton. You know, you're going to have Jarrett Allen weighing in right around 250 pounds or so, like a Nick Claxton, another trade target for the Lakers. He's coming in at 215, right? I mean, he's even lighter than Jackson Hayes. A strong wind, and he blows away. So what we're looking at here with Jarrett Allen is the potential long-term fit for the Lakers at the center position, and at only $20 million next season. Now, it goes up to $28 million after that, $30.2 million after that, $32.4 million after that. And people may look at that and say, oh, but 4 years from now, $32 million, that's a lot to pay a guy like Jarrett Allen. True, but the cap's going up. Look, that's only going to be 16%, actually 15.8%. of the salary cap. So the Lakers would still have a pretty decent amount of flexibility for your starting 5 to pay less than 16% of the cap. That's actually pretty good. So this is a nice contract should the Cavs decide to make the move. And then getting there math-wise is super easy. $20 million, no problem. The Lakers have $20 million in expiring contracts, easy. They've got that in Maxi Kleber. They've got that in Gabe Vincent. Heck, if you want to try to plus up the offer, they've got $18 million in expiring money in Rui Hachimura. The big question is if, number one, if it's true that the Cavs do want to move on from Jarrett Allen, what are they looking for? And would the Lakers be willing to part with Austin Reeves in that kind of a deal? Remember, Austin is in kind of a tricky situation. $13.9 million next season on the books, but then a player option after that, and he can hit free agency. So that becomes problematic for the Lakers because he's probably not going to take that extension that the Lakers are going to offer him this summer. 4 years, just under $90 million. It's not the going rate. It's not the market rate for a guy like Austin Reeves. So it behooves him to hit free agency the next year. But do the Lakers want to risk that Austin could walk in free agency? He hits unrestricted free agency and the Lakers could lose him for nothing. We've lived that life. We did that with Dwight Howard. It's not fun. You can't replace a guy like Austin Reeves on your roster if he walks away for nothing. So are the Lakers willing to take the gamble that Austin is going to stick around, will re-sign in free agency in that summer of 2026? Or do they say, you know what? We don't want to deal with that. If Austin's not going to take the extension that we're going to offer him, do we just put him into a deal for a guy like Jarrett Allen, who's probably one of the better starting 5s in the NBA, could be a rim threat, a lob threat for Luka, a rim protector, be a rebounder. Yeah, he had some struggles in the playoffs, but he could be a long-term fit with Luka Doncic. Of course, the Lakers would prefer to get a deal done without Austin. What would that offer look like? Well, then we're kind of talking about that Mark Williams trade package that we saw from the trade deadline, where we'd be looking at Austin Reeves would not be in it. Instead, it would be perhaps Rui's expiring contract in it, but most likely they'd try to use Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent. This would be the ideal situation for the Lakers. That 2031 pick would have to be unprotected, I would assume, and then Dalton Connect would have to be involved. Now, is that enough for a Cavs team that's got to be looking around in the Eastern Conference and doing the Will Smith empty room meme? No, I mean, the Cavs and everybody else in the East has to be looking around going, damn, where did everybody go? The Celtics are gone. Jason Tatum, unfortunately, tore his Achilles. They're going to be in probably a gap year next year. So the East is wide open. If I'm the Cavs, I want to get back pieces that can help me win right now. Is that Dalton Connect? Maybe. So maybe this gets to be a 3-team trade, 4-team trade, something like that if the Lakers really want to get in on Jared Allen. They certainly will not be the only team after him, but that's one option for the Lakers to potentially go land their starting center with a trade rather than having to use that taxpayer mid-level exception. And that would free up that $5.6 million taxpayer MLE to potentially go get, Nickeil Alexander-Walker or somebody like that out there on the free agent market if they don't get outbid by other teams. The last thing, the way to flip all of this is if they do find their starting 5 with that taxpayer MLE, if there's not a good deal out there for a Jared Allen. Nick Claxton is another guy who's certainly on their radar. He's making $25 million, though. Is that somebody that you want to give up significant assets to go get? Are you locked in on him being your starting center long term? Again, I said he's only 215 pounds, but there are some real positives to his game. I broke it down a couple of weeks ago. You can find that video on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel. That's a guy that they're rumored to be interested in. There's other players out there that could potentially target on the trade market. The Dallas Mavericks had Daniel Gafford. We've talked a lot about the Lakers potentially landing him. I don't know if Dallas will consider trading with the Lakers, but the fail-safe in all of this would be to use that $5.6 million to go sign a free agent big man. So I do think if worst case scenario, there are no free agents or there are no trades out there for centers that really make sense for the Lakers. Worst case scenario, I think they become the prime landing spot for any of the veteran free agent bigs out there on the market. Now, there's not a lot. These names won't be super exciting. We're talking about a 37-year-old Brook Lopez. We're talking about Clint Capella, who's 30, 31, and just lost his starting job to Onyeka Okongwu last year with the Atlanta Hawks. Maybe Steven Adams. I mean, certainly be interested in him. But do any of those guys really check the box for the Lakers? No, they don't. But could those guys be a stopgap center? Maybe a bridge center if they're able to find a young center somewhere out there that they want to develop. Those guys seem to be the safety net for the Lakers, and they could use that $5.6 million taxpayer mid-level exception on one of them if they simply can't find a way to work a trade for a starting center. So a lot to figure out here for the Lakers, a lot of moving pieces and everything, but some news out there on the market today. Nickeil Alexander-Walker now looking like potentially a mid-level exception guy. Worth noting, though, that if that doesn't wind up happening, the Lakers could get into the mix, certainly with that $5.6 million taxpayer MLE. The only way they get more than that, the only way they get to a full mid-level would be as if something we're not expecting happens, like LeBron James takes a pay cut, Dorian Finney-Smith walks away in free agency, something like that. I've had people say, well, why isn't Luka being asked to take a pay cut? He's under contract next season already. That's not a thing. He's already under contract next season. He has to sign an extension this summer. That's what the Lakers are waiting for him to sign. So there's nothing Luka can do right now to lessen his cap hit for next season. That's why we keep going to a potential LeBron pay cut to open up that full MLE. Would Nickeil Alexander-Walker be enough for LeBron to take a pay cut? Would he be enough of a player for LeBron to say, oh, yeah, I'll take, I don't know, 16, 17, $18 million less, and so that we can bring him in with a full mid-level? We'll see. We'll see. Free agency, all of that really is going to start ramping up here when we get to the middle of June, right around the draft. Expected to be a very...
With the Los Angeles Lakers looking for a center during the offseason, there have been multiple names that have popped up. According to a recent report from Evan Sidery of Forbes Sports, the two common Lakers targets continue to be Daniel Gafford of the Dallas Mavericks and Nick Claxton of the Brooklyn Nets. The Lakers are targeting an athletic rim-running big man, Sidery posted to X. After the voided trade for Charlotte Hornets center Mark Williams, two names to keep a close eye on this summer are Brooklyn Nets, Nick Claxton, and Dallas Mavericks, Daniel Gafford. Brooklyn has been open to moving Claxton, while Gafford is seeking an extension with a pay raise. Two great fits. Claxton and Gafford would be excellent additions for the Los Angeles Lakers. Claxton, a very athletic center, averaged 10.3 points, 7.4 rebounds, and blocked 1.4 shots per game. The 26-year-old has faced some struggles throughout his NBA career, but he's been a very steady player in recent years, consistently performing at a high level. The Lakers would be able to utilize him in the pick and roll with Luka Doncic, opening up something that their offense lacked a year ago. Regarding Gafford, he's already played with Doncic, which the Lakers could be interested in adding. According to Dan Wyke of the LA Times, Gafford and Claxton are the two names the Lakers have been linked to most in the pre-stages of the offseason. The team has shown no interest in using Reeves in a trade that nets them anything less than a top-tier big, and there really aren't any of those available, with the two most common names linked to them in the earliest stages of the offseason, Brooklyn's Nick Claxton and Dallas's Daniel Gafford, he wrote. And you, fan, what do you think about Daniel Gafford's situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.